I guess not super relevant, but cool. Let's get started. Welcome to Project Meeting 4, part of Session 1. Super keen to have everyone here with us. Pretty much a week from today, today is not June 19th, today is June 12th, but a week from today is Juneteenth, Freedom Day. It's a holiday that is respected within the US. It was the date back in 1865 when Black slaves were emancipated in Texas finally. So we just wanted to say that we super respect this holiday. We also know that we have Project Meeting 5 planned next week on that day. We are going to record it here, so you're still welcome to come. But if you can't make it, if you're out at protests, go you. We will definitely share the recording out as soon as possible with that. So we just want to say super excited for that holiday. And also related to scheduling on holidays, we realized that our final meeting is scheduled for Friday, July 3rd. We understand that this is the July 4th weekend. I know I have it off from work. A lot of people have it off. We just wanted to do a poll around, for the final showcase of your projects, if you would prefer July 3rd, or maybe we could do something on Monday, July 6th.
So you should have a pop-up appear where you can vote. I've got about half the people who've currently voted. I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. But yeah, July 3rd is the Friday before July 4th, and then July 6th is the Monday. So the final showcase of student projects, just an FYI, is also going to involve workshops, or I think one workshop, and then we're planning a career panel. So with people with students, current students, recent grads, people who have made it in some way, shape, or form, broken into the design industry. So this will be the same date for that. I'm going to give it a few more seconds where you can vote.
Alright, you got the screenshot?
Yes, I just got the screenshot. I'm going to end the poll. So right now, okay, this is cool. You guys can see it. I'm going to retake the screenshot because I'm nervous. Cool. And then we have another poll, which is about design jams. So some of you have been coming to design jams regularly. For a lot of people, it's just not what they're interested in, or it doesn't benefit them for where they are in their project. We are wondering, would you prefer to have office hours on Thursdays where you can book appointments for team members and jam leaders, rather than Monday design jams? I'm launching the poll now. Just vote and we'll see what's up. It should pop up on your screen. And if you have any questions, just unmute yourself or post in the chat, whatever. Oh, also these are completely anonymous. I can't tell who's voting what, if that helps you make a decision or not. I'm gonna give it a few more seconds. Okay, and I'll end the poll here. There we go. Everyone can see. Oh wait, am I sharing the results? I'll share the results with everyone. There we go. So it looks like you've not been going to design jams and prefer Thursday office hours. Okay, so we will be taking this feedback on board, and we'll be changing the way that we structure the sessions to suit students better. Cool. I realized
What I will say is we have had some design jams that have had really consistent people showing up.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of having 3 jam leaders, we may just have 1, or some more community organized run ones.
Yeah.
So we're not necessarily going to nix design jams completely, but I think maybe we're trying to come up with solutions that better serve the community.
Yep, exactly. And just for transparency, I'll share the polling results of the first poll because I realized I didn't do that. But the majority of you voted for July 6th. So we may end up doing another poll within Slack just because we realized that not a lot of people can make the session today. So yeah, just keep your eyes peeled for announcements regarding that. Thank you for taking part. Okay.
Alrighty. So we wanted to start off with highlighting some amazing student project progress so far. We are super excited to see what everyone submitted this week. We've been going through them. Laura, do we have an update on when everyone should get feedback for those kind of weekly assignments?
Yes, so everyone, we've been a little bit slow and we're sorry about that. We didn't realize how many projects would be submitted, which is amazing. But yeah, we've caught up on grading for weeks 1 and 2, and I'm hoping to give feedback to everyone who has submitted for this past week just gone by Sunday. And if you haven't got feedback by Sunday, then send me a message on Slack and we'll sort that out. But it should all be done. We're catching up within time. But let's go ahead and highlight some student projects. We've had a few projects this week which we just thought were really great and stood out to us. The first one is by Nikita. So she was doing Crazy Eights for students going through the university application process, and is in particular looking at the space between mentors and mentees. So this is Nikita's Crazy Eights. I just thought it was really fun. I liked the idea of bringing in Zoom and mock interviews, and then clearly some of the ideas are linking to each other. They've drawn arrows in between the ideas, and having notes on the side just to explain what's going on is really helpful, especially with the documentation process. Most people in the design world will know what Crazy Eights is, but your Crazy Eights might only make sense to you, especially if they're super quick, like really scrappy sketches, which is what they're meant to be. But having notes on the side if you're presenting them to someone else can be really helpful in providing that context.
And what I love here is, you went ahead and did even more Crazy Eights. I definitely feel this where I will sit down for 8 minutes, come up with a bunch of ideas, and be like, I'm not really feeling any of these. Or, I maybe need to think about this a little bit more and continue ideating. So I always say, like, if you're not happy with what you got, just keep jamming and keep, iterating, putting down, brain dumping, all of the ideas. Really like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then the same goes with solution sketches. So again, a solution sketch might only make sense to you. It should be a little bit clearer, but it's a lot easier to understand when you label them and have numbers, and it's just really presentation friendly. So this was great. And some extras there. This is a project by Ebing and Raymond, so they're redesigning SSOL. They included a fun quote from Professor Lydia Chilton. SSOL makes me want to puke grey chunks. Maraika just pointed out the slide theme of dinosaurs is just super cute and fun, especially compared to SSOL, which just made us laugh and like had a good time when we were looking at it. Keep going forward. So this is their Crazy Eights. They were doing Crazy Eights specifically for the SSOL homepage and registration sites. So yeah, this is super quick. I enjoyed the tabs and the use of color, very minimal use of color, but just to point out, this is which tab we're in on this site, super clear. I loved the tree design exploration. Yeah, that one. I just thought it was super creative and fun, and that's exactly where your Crazy Eights should be taking you, is going broad and just having fun with creativity, which was awesome. And then I also think that I had some pretty comprehensive solution sketches. Yeah, there we go. Again, very minimal use of color. We don't want to be seeing anything that looks gorgeous or pretty. It's just clear, it makes sense. The functionality is very visible, and there's some notes on the side just to make it a bit clearer. So this was really great, and we love the theme. This is Ender's project. So Ender is working on GenderRev, which is a social media app that Ender developed. We loved this Crazy Eights as well, just because it's fun, it's simple, it's clearly working on specific elements of the feed and just getting creative with that. And yeah, we thought this was super accessible and easy, and that's exactly what Crazy Eights should be. Similarly with the solution sketch, very clear. So great work there, Ender.
Yeah, I thought Ender came up with a really great idea here around users voting for features. And although these are like really small sketches, it's still clear to me on a glance, like, oh, I go on the homepage, login, feed, and then somewhere there's a vote on the features where I vote yes, no, up, down. I just thought that this was a really simplistic way that even as a potential user could understand this feature set and give feedback on it. So I also just think that this feature is a fun exploration. Awesome.
And then finally, we have some portfolio sketches. So we just show you two of them. This is Tamana's. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but we love this portfolio sketch. It's really clear how you got from the paper sketch to what you've actually built, and it just looks amazing. And this is Mareike's. We thought it was really creative and fun. Again, just clear, it's a paper sketch. It's just getting down your ideas, and we just loved it.
Yeah, I definitely like how you include the little URL that you're looking at getting and how you incorporate the nickname that you were talking about here with the portfolio. And just changing up the viewpoint here, like the nice little Columbia icon with some of the maybe key screens. So we really like kind of this exploration before building, because you wouldn't maybe think of this just by typing in HTML or on a website builder, but this is possible to build. So good job. Awesome, cool. So now we're in phase 4 of the design process. This is the prototype phase. You've ideated and you've sketched a bunch of solutions, and now we're gonna make some prototypes and eventually test them. So you may be asking, what is a prototype? I just like pulled some random definitions and jumbled them together, but what I came up with was a first model is something from which concepts and forms are continually refined and developed through an iterative process. You can see here that someone was working on a razor, and actually in the back of the image, you can see maybe some wooden prototypes. So this is kind of maybe what you classically think of as a prototype. We also wanted to just simplify that, junky definition to something more in a nutshell. We prototype because showing is better than telling. It provides more context for our users and really like bringing them through an experience, through a storytelling experience. And via prototyping, visualization, and other techniques, the really big thing is to create shareable artifacts. We can use these artifacts with our users, but also other stakeholders, other people that have powers in making decisions around our designs, and also drive swift iteration with consumer feedback. So going out there, getting feedback on prototypes, learning what's good, what's bad, and iterating those prototypes and doing the whole process again. So this is what prototyping really is in a nutshell. You may ask, okay, cool, prototyping sounds great, consumer feedback, yada, yada, yada. You guys have been saying that since day one. But really, why prototype? I love this kind of saying, small flaws can break great ideas. You always want to learn and iterate. Here is an example of a hot, flashy startup in Silicon Valley called Juicero. They were like, oh, cool, we're gonna make this juicing machine. It's gonna be smart. It's gonna connect to your phone. I'm sorry to anyone in human-centered design who may have heard this story already. But they give you these little packets and you put it into this beautifully industrial design machine, and it pushes these packets with 10 tons of force or something like that. And it all sounds great. It's like, cool, it's accessible juicing at home that's smart and has all these fun features. Makes sense, right? Well, users got a hold of the juice packs and figured out, I don't need those 10 tons of force or your hundreds of dollars of machine. I can just buy your juice packs and squeeze them out with my hands, and there's virtually no difference. And so why prototype? Small flaws like this can break your great idea. Maybe if the Juicero team had done this on a lower fidelity scale, had actually brought these juice pouches out to people before launching this product, they may have discovered, oh, you can just cut them and pour out your own juice without our expensive machine. And I want to talk then about prototyping fidelity. So obviously Juicero had that really beautiful high fidelity prototype / machine that they shipped. You're talking about creating a prototype. Well, what does a prototype look like? We use fidelities to describe kind of the in-depthness, the effort that you put into making and developing that prototype. I know last week we were talking about some of the air taxi work back that I did in Sydney. And here you can see the, I think, 10 different iterations that we did of our app idea, all the way from our initial paper sketches and brainstorming, all the way to an interactive, clickable motion design prototype. In the middle is this kind of nice medium where you're getting these mid-fidelity prototypes, especially like right here, that are easy to click through. You know, you can view this and you can understand what's going on, but you didn't spend hours making these beautiful little icons here and perfecting the motion design and making it a realistic, super high fidelity experience. So we just want to show the full spectrum here, and we've done low fidelity in our paper sketches and our solution sketches, and we'll be moving closer to mid fidelity and eventually higher fidelity once we get more feedback on our ideas. So what to prototype? Kind of what I'm saying is build just what you need to make the prototype real enough to get an authentic response from a potential user. So talking about that same air taxi example, this is a click-through prototype made on Figma, I believe. You can definitely do this on Figma. And we sketched this screen out super fast, just with circles and squares and some lines. And we put it on a phone, which you can do at Figma. And we just gave it out to users. And we would bring users out to the street and be like, cool, imagine you're going to this area of town and you're going home. What would you do? And you know, this app isn't beautiful. It's not like Uber or Lyft where you pull it up and there's all these fancy animations. You're just clicking through. But it was enough to simulate that authentic experience. And we got tons of phenomenal feedback from our user, and honestly saved a lot of time as we moved on to our fancier prototype. So what to prototype? Kind of build the minimum viable product, kind of mid-fidelity-ish. Oh, what to prototype? Yep, map out the experience. So you're kind of wondering like, oh, we have this whole experience, we have this whole idea that we want to prototype. How much of it should we do? Really focus on the main steps that you want to test. We'll be going through a little bit of user stories in a bit, and that will help you understand, cool, what are the key stories? What are the key experiences we want our users to go through? And how can we create kind of those critical journeys, those critical user stories in our prototype, and just connect the simple click-through prototype together. You do not need to create functional back end or cater to every single scenario possible. You can kind of see that here. We have a pull-out menu and there's a settings page and an about page and free rides and payments. We did none of that because it wasn't within the scope of proving an air taxi experience idea, other than that these things existed in the menu like other existing competitors. So you can see how we kind of didn't prioritize that, but did prioritize, pulling up your ticket to get in an air taxi. What to prototype? Come up with your design hypothesis. What can you build in order to test that hypothesis? And remember, prototypes can be anything. What is your design hypothesis? Try and treat this like your research projects in middle school and high school, where your teachers were like, what are you trying to learn? What are you trying to prove? For example, with the air taxi experience, one of the things that we were trying to prove was, having a circular screen here makes it feel like a compass and makes wayfinding easier. And if we kind of shape it like a compass, when users are navigating the streets, they'll feel more comfortable and kind of understand this model of interaction. We ended up learning that that was false and that this was just really confusing and created a bunch of white space. But that was our hypothesis, and we proved it wrong. and then what can you build to kind of test that hypothesis. So we built that click-through prototype, and it taught us that our hypothesis was wrong. And lastly, prototypes can be anything. I wanted to show you guys some examples of, you can do the digital prototypes that we're showing, but there are other types. For example, we were working with the State Library of Victoria in Melbourne, and they were trying to surface a kind of their online collection of library books. And we were tasked with kind of coming up with a way of surfacing 95% of their collection that they couldn't fit on shelves, but wanted to surface that were kind of stuck on online directories. Our team did exactly what you've been doing. We storyboarded, we low fidelity prototyped on a whiteboard and created solution sketches. And we started like role playing as users. Cool, what does this experience feel like? And this was super helpful. We ended up coming with an embedded screen that sat on a bookshelf and that you were able to use to kind of swipe through books almost as if they were on the shelf and search for them and check them out at any bookshelf. Let's see. I have a little quick video. I won't go through the whole thing.
Did you view it?
But we created this prototype. It is very high fidelity, but we could have used more black and white and made it simple. But I'm typing fake, I'm pretending to click on things here, but you're getting an idea of, cool, this is the experience of what it's like to look for a book on a digital screen that's existing on a bookshelf. And you may ask us, oh, how did you put a screen on a bookshelf within a library? A little secret, we did not. We used a television screen and pretended like it was a bookshelf. So this is an example of, only prototype what you need to prove your hypothesis or disprove your hypothesis. Be creative. You don't need to build a physical screen and go to a library to prove the point. We just used a TV and we're a little creative with our filming. Another one, this is just like a Photoshop thing to show you what it looks like. Another one that we did for a different project, we were looking at how we could bring the shopping experience at a farmer's market to the household. This is super relevant during COVID as well because there aren't farmers markets right now. Farmers still want to connect with their consumers and share information about their farms, about their farming techniques, share information about where exactly my food is coming from. And so we wanted to create an experience kind of like HelloFresh, but more geared towards showing you exactly where your food is coming from, what farms those food is coming from, and getting you to kind of build a personal relationship with your farmer. So we also storyboarded what both of those experiences look like, both for farmers on their farms sending things out logistically, and for you ordering online, having a little subscription box dropped off at your door, and cooking at your home and knowing where your food has come from. You may ask how we prototyped all this craziness. We went out to a farmer's market. We met farmer Jamin Scobie. We wrote down all of his information and asked if it was okay. We bought a bunch of his produce and asked if it would be okay to like prototype this idea. And so what we did is we got some of our friends to like sign up through ourselves by texting us. And we brought them this little like crate of food and put it on their doorsteps with this little note from the farmer. And it was super janky, but we got so much valuable feedback around how we were kind of branding ourselves, the food selection, and what people wanted to know about Farmer Scobie. So this was an experiential prototype, just showing you that not everything has to be digital. And finally, just a guiding principle to prototyping. Iterative design is fast, easy, and cheap. Start with low to mid fidelity for your first round of user testing. That is kind of my guiding principle for you guys with your first experience with user-centered design. Some digital prototyping tools that we'll be going over. Actually, there's this main one here, Figma. It's free for students, and you can do low fidelity prototypes, mid fidelity, high fidelity. You can take pictures of your paper sketches and put them on the frames on Figma, and you can create clickable prototypes with your paper sketches. You can draw stuff with just black and white boxes, or you can make really, really, really high fidelity, realistic looking prototypes with even animations between the screens. So we are going to be mainly supporting Figma, and we actually have the Figma 101 workshop later for this. but we did want to point out that there are other great tools like Principal and Framer for higher fidelity, or you could just use like Google Slides if that's more accessible to you. And lastly, user stories. These are short, kind of goal-oriented statements that capture users' stories that we're building features around. They usually have the format as a user, I want to blank so that I can blank. And this is really pulling out the action and feature that we're trying to build and the value that it brings to our user that we discovered in our user research. Here is some examples. This was from Era Solo, the air taxi. As a commuter, I want to enter my destination details so that I can see if Era can meet my requirements to get home. And that way we could build the screen and understand that this is like on the screen, they want to enter their details and see the time that it takes to get home, how much it costs. And then during user testing later, we could go back to this user story and ask them, hey, can you enter your destination details? What do you see on the screen? We could see if them performing that action delivers the value that they're seeking for in testing. So this is kind of just a list of user stories as an example. Here's a second one going back to the Google Campus experience that we looked at last week. As a student, I want to import a profile from my university so that clubs that I join or follow know who I am and my basic information. User stories are super, super, super helpful for scoping what you want to design in your prototypes and make sure that you're kind of hitting all of those key features. I would suggest aim for like 5 to 15 user stories to kind of develop and test different features across your prototype. And just make sure that you're getting that full user journey and making sure that you're testing out different features. For deliverables this week, I'll keep it really short. Pick a solution sketch / idea that you will prototype. Write out some user stories for it. We've kind of shown you a couple examples of user stories. And then creating a testable mid-fidelity prototype, preferably one that you can click through. Really quickly, I wanted to show you the example here with the Era Solo, the air taxi. This was the clickable prototype that we created and used with users, where you can just see I click where to, I click home, it comes up with some options, and I choose the Era Solo, and the screen changes. So this is kind of the level of fidelity that we would suggest based on the project submissions that we've seen so far. And you can do all of this within Figma. You don't have to use InVision or any other apps. And in our Figma 101 shop, we'll show you how to do this. Just super exciting. On how to submit deliverables, we have another link right here. Please submit them by Friday, June 19th, 8 a.m. We look at them in the morning, so we would love to see whatever you got by that time. We'll also send this link out in the Slack as a reminder. And I'll pass it off to Lydia for faculty advisors.
What? Can you advance the slides though, or can somebody do that?
Karen, next slide.
Oh
my God, sorry, I was muted. I muted you guys.
Okay, just quickly want to talk about 4 other faculty who would love to help you. This is Laura Kurgan. She's professor in architecture. She's amazing in like every possible way. One very cool and famous thing she did was this project called $1 Million Blocks, where she's very into mapping. She mapped of all the people in prison, like where are they from, and realized that like the entire city, based on the number of people imprisoned in Brooklyn, it costs $359 million to imprison them just in 2003. She does all sorts of impactful work just by tracing back like dollars and facts and figures to places and showing the deep inequality that way. Anyway, she's awesome. Next. Hod Lipson is a mechanical engineering professor. His lab's called Creative Machines. He makes robots that draw and dance. He's been making 3D printed food, which is also cool. Highly creative. He led a design challenge on making ventilators for COVID. So he also has lots of medical experience. Just an awesome creative thinker. Next. John Kasimis is an electrical engineering professor, which I didn't actually know what field he was in because he does everything, and he's just a highly successful entrepreneur and works in sustainable design. As with all EE folks, there's, you know, usually a lot of health and medical design that goes with that. But what I love about him is he's always about, as all the other faculty are talking about how we should do this, how, like, he's like done it by the time everyone else is still like talking about it with their fingers in their ears. I just love his attitude. Okay, great. Next. Erin Kyle is professor in biomedical engineering. I would say of all the departments on campus, biomedical has the most like design focused classes, teachers, entrepreneurs. They really do this extremely well, the human-centered design process of first going to a hospital, taking a particular scenario where there's patients, doctors, nurses, whatever stakeholders, and saying like, what kind of devices do we need to treat people better? So they partner with COMC all the time. Erin Kyle, in addition to all his awesome medical stuff, there's a lot of STEM outreach, particularly during in the summer. There's a makerspace, a bio makerspace in Harlem that he teaches at, and he's gotten all sorts of teaching awards because I mean, like, it's kind of the best. He's my teaching hero, to be sure. I think that's it. Back to Laura.
Yeah, we can skip this slide. Hopefully by now you know how to reach out to
just
feedback.
Direct message me. People have been doing it. Thank you so much. I think I've made 3 connections so far, and some people I've just talked to myself. I'd love to make even more. I know it can be tough, but I promise you'll get so much out of it. The faculty that we are introducing you to all really love undergrads and want to help them. If you've had negative experiences with a faculty or with office hours before, try it again, because these people are like really doing it because they want to, not just because, you know, they have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. We also want to chat about, plug the ADI as a resource again. So ADI is partnering with Design at Columbia to offer technical help on any of your projects. So if you want to do any of these things on the left here, or basically know anything or try and build anything technical for your project, join the ADI-help Slack channel and message in there. They will also be hosting a workshop on Sunday. It will be Intro to HTML and CSS. It's optional. Like you said, you don't have to code in order to design, but if you, it definitely helps. It helps you talk to software engineers. It's kind of cool to know how to design your own website. And also you might be able to take Lydia's class if you know how to code HTML and CSS. It'll be 3 to 4 p.m. EST this Sunday, and the meeting link is on the calendar.
Oh.
So today's workshops, we've got a workshop with Lydia called Visual Information Design. So that'll be just under 45 minutes. And after that, we'll be having Lucy show us how to do everything you need to do with Figma. Should we take a small break, or are you ready to break?
Yes, small break.
Okay, we'll be back in 2 minutes to start at 22. But yeah, if you have any questions or just want to chat, post in the chat or just unmute yourself. You're off here. And yeah, let's start sharing.
Yay.
Ooh.
Lydia, do you want me to make you the host rather than a co-host?
I am going to do breakout rooms. Have you done those?
I have.
As long as you can do that,
yeah,
it's fine.
Okay.
But do remember that don't go to a breakout if you're the host, because it records that breakout room.
Okay, I won't go.
I did that last time. So somebody's breakout room is in the video. Oops. It's funny, it's a lot harder to pull, not harder, but time consuming to pull out like various modules from my slides than I thought it was. I always assume like, oh, I'll just take slides, you know, like 3 through 30 and then boom, that's it. It's never that easy. What am I gonna learn? Probably never. That's okay.
Okay, it's officially 22. Feel free to get started whenever you feel like it.
I kind of feel like it, so I'm just gonna go for now. All right, fantastic. I get to give my favorite lecture from my class right now. It's called Visual Information Design, and it really encapsulates everything about the design process in a like really tiny way. So that's cool. So why are we talking about this? Design in pretty much every field requires displaying information, particularly on websites. So you could take Google and stop thinking about all the clicks and all the actions and whatever. If you just look at it as a still image, it's almost entirely text. And they have displayed this text in ways that is nice. Our page for Design at Columbia, as you know, a fair share of text, but also an image that goes along with. So like text and images go together. You can also have text, images, and video information. So YouTube does this pretty well, right? So they've integrated these. These are actually images of videos, one video itself. But in order to make any of these kinds of things, you have to decide how and what you're going to display. So forget about the clicks. Just worry about the things you're going to arrange on the page. This is incredibly important because information should be presented in visual ways that help users accomplish the goal. This is a boarding pass. It's not that old, actually, so it's Delta. Imagine you're the person with this boarding pass, and you're like, oh my God, what gate do I go to? You stare at it. Oh, 20E, great, let me go to 20E. And you get there, and like, the 20E doesn't exist. You're like, what the hell happened? Oh, that was my seat, not the gate. Look at all this crap that's on this page, like things that are just not necessary for a human or a computer to read. Yeah, okay, the barcode's there. Clearly a computer needs it, but like verify passport. What is all these stuff? Random numbers. So I'm gonna show you how somebody redesigned this. And look how brilliant it is. It's organized by what the person will need to know. So there's this group right here of things that you'll need, like, you know, what terminal I'm at, what boarding area, what flight number. This is sort of stuff you need on the way to the airport as you check the status, as you tell the taxi where to go. Has anyone done that? I'm like, oh, go to JFK. They're like, what terminal? I'm like, oh, let me look it up. I never know. Right? And then once you're at the airport, this is stuff that you're going to need to know. What time do I board? What gate is it at? And like, do I get to go first or last? And then once you're actually on the plane, here and now I need to know my seat, whether it's a window, exactly where it's going to be. And I don't know if anyone else is like this, but while I'm sitting there, I'm like, are we departing yet? Are we departing? And so it tells you what time it's departing. So this is more beautiful, but it's not necessarily, that's not what's so important that it's aesthetically pleasing more than this, is that it has the user's goal in mind and it's organized to help with that. And this is the goal that we want to have. Instead of putting information up like this in sort of like any old random way, to organize it to help the user. Okay, I'm going to show you an example of how you might do this. And then you're going to get to do one of your own in a workshop. This task is very hard, I promise you. So this is what we call undifferentiated text. it's readable. It's not like the problem is people can't read it. I'll read it to you to prove this. You are cordially invited to Robert and Alexandra's delectable after-dinner party. Wine and nibbles will be served. When? February 20th, 2019 at 9:30 p.m. Where? The pad. If you need directions, ping us. Please, kindly let us know if you'll be attending by February 1st. The problem with this kind of text is people mostly gloss over it. They might miss important information. You can already tell, like, if you want people to RSVP, like, you can see how people might forget if it was down there. Okay. So we want to design this text to make it easy for people to read. The very first part of this is to group related information into chunks. Right now, it's one big blob. But if you think about, okay, I know it's an invitation. I've seen wedding party invitations before. There's sort of a couple key concepts. One, kind of what it is, this dinner party. That there's food. That's useful to know. I don't have to eat beforehand. Wine, yes, I will definitely be at that party. And then all the information about when, where, what, blah, blah, blah. And then all this RSVP stuff. So already, this is a better information organization. These things are separated into conceptual groups, is what we call them. It takes up more space, yes. It's not clear that space is a huge concern. Even if it were, it's worth it, because people are going to read and see all this. So if that's the only thing you do, you're still in pretty good space. However, you can make this even better. In each chunk, decide what's important to emphasize. So if you think about this text, most of this "you are cordially invited to" is just sort of filler text people say. If you don't hear that, you can still basically understand the point. So here's a way that you can use to say all the information, but emphasize the important parts. This, I guess it's not as important as what it is. If people realize it's a dinner party, they'll read more to figure that out. But that was a little tricky. Oops. Okay, so then this sort of stuff. When, where, da, 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 da. Very often I see people say, oh, when and where need to be super emphasized. They actually don't. You don't actually need the labels at all. This stuff like February 20th, because people know that if there's a party, there's gonna have to be a date. So they'll be scanning for a date already. And the pad is more important than the if you ping us stuff. And then the let us know when you'll be attending by February 1st. February 1st is the most important part. So here's all the information. Now, if you notice, this guy is like a singleton. Usually you try to push things into 3 groups. Too many groups is bad. 4 is not the worst, but this is just isolated. So one way to fix this is just to push those together. This wine and nibbles conceptually groups with the fact that it's a dinner party much more than the when and where or the RSVP stuff. So here you go. What's good about this is that it passes what we call the squint test, which is now here, I've just made the text blurry. I'm simulating you squinting. But think about your users as not like reading this text as if it were sacred and they were monks and they're gonna read every word, but as if they were important people with a lot of shit to do, and they're kind of gonna glance at something and decide, do I wanna read more? So that's, if you squint at it, what information pops out, okay? The dinner party bit, you can almost see the date. This February 1st pops out a lot too. So the most important information is coming out. That's great. And they would be seen in this order. Okay. So if you compare these two things, this has no hierarchy of information. There's no order, because people can't just see something and take it all in. They have to see it in a certain order. This is how the eye is going to go down the page. So this is very well designed and thought through from the user's point of view, and how is their attention going to flow through it? What information do they need? What's important to the task? Great. Users can't focus on everything, and they have what we call a spotlight of attention, and we have to design for that. I'm sure you've all been on the receiving end. I'm sure many professors or textbooks have just thrown a whole bunch of information at you. Like, figure it out on the homework. And you're like, it just doesn't work. The first thing you have to do is reorganize that so you can sort of get it in your brain the way it fits your attention. Okay, so this visual hierarchy guides users' attention. That's what you get to do as a designer. You don't get to tell them what to think. You don't get to force them to do it. You get to invite them in a nice way so it fits their eye and guide their attention. Okay, I'm going to show you 7 tools for visually conveying importance. The first one, as you saw earlier, was groups. Groups indicate different concepts. And here you say, there's 3 different important things. If people see this, they'll think it's a paragraph and will think that only the first sentence is important, and they'll keep skimming. So if you have important things, you need to make them like paragraphs, different visual chunks. Right? So you'll see that even interfaces like this have, like, here's the menu grouping, here's the actual email grouping, and here is the like contacts and chat grouping. In YouTube, you have the actual content grouping, you have the metadata grouping, and you have the watch it next all day long grouping. So location also indicates importance. The things in red are the positions on a web page that will be seen the most. These are the yellow is the next important, and the greens is not. So if you don't catch people's attention in the high priority area, they're not going to get to the low priority area. So here are actual heat maps of where people look on pages, and you can see exactly this. They sort of see this, okay, next section, and then boop, nobody got down here. Maybe there's a little attention paid to the menu. If there's an image, people will definitely look that, and then also do this, this R shape down the page. But you see it absolutely in search results, that people look at the first 3 and kind of nothing else. Great. White space. This is my favorite trick. White space or negative space, nothing to do with white, indicates importance. So here, when I made the website of my class, I put a whole lot of white space around what the name of the site is, or the name of the class is. I thought that was important. So here's the site without it. I just, edited it, took out that white space. It looks a lot more crowded. Things don't conceptually group. This is bigger, so you see it. But like if I squint, this whole thing kind of looks like a chunk, and this part 1, part 2. But by giving this more white space, it's very clear what the title is and what to look at first. Okay. Here's Amazon. Like this is like Amazon's a site that loves to put as much crap on the page as possible. And look at how much white space they put around the James Harden store. Like that is powerful. That makes you think, wow, they care about this. I actually did it with some more products. See, all this is negative space here too. They all are, most of them are accompanied by a picture, which also attracts attention, as James Harden did. But like people really respond to, like, if something has a lot of white space around it, it must be important. So you see in a gallery, here's a random thing in the Louvre. Here's how the Mona Lisa is. Why does it need white space around it? Because you don't want to conflict it with anything else. You don't want to see anything else. You want to give this your full focus. And there's going to be crowds around it. Like you don't want to impinge on anything else's space. You want to give it all the space that it needs. Okay. Size indicates importance. So one button is bigger and greener than the other. They want you to press submit more than they want you to press cancel. Right? And this just indicates what's primary and secondary action. Images indicate importance. So here, this is after Facebook's crisis number, 5, and we're on like 50 at this point. They sent out this thing about, we're here to keep your account safe. The image says nothing. Like it's literally just symbols of safety and shields and hands and blah, blah, blah. But this image makes it seem like they're more serious, and it was gonna capture your attention. Like try to imagine without the image. It's just some text that you're clearly gonna gloss over. So images indicate importance. Here you can see a lot of products do this, especially like iPhone and Starbucks and other like companies that really care about their like the quality of their product. Just put a product on their page with a whole lot of white space around it. That's important. Okay, contrast, aka bold. So you notice like I just made the some of these things more bold than others, that indicates that they're more important than others. Google does this with Gmail. You can see the unread emails are more important than the read ones, and there's just more contrast between because it's bold and white, and also because the gray and the unbolded text are closer together. Okay, last and least is that color indicates importance. So here someone's filling out their password or something and they've got errors. So here's very acceptable use of color. You need to, there's also a little image in there, this triangle warning sign. And I go over, but be very, very careful with color. These are 7 tools and you use them in this order. Most important is grouping. If you do only one thing, do grouping. And if you're gonna do something else after grouping, use location. Third most important thing, do white space. Then think about size, images, contrast, and very, very last, color. Okay. So you can see what tools did the Get to the Airport group use? Well, they used groups. There's 2 groups. There's this group up here, which is the flight number, and then like the sort of terminal information. They use size. Some things are bigger than others, and contrast. Not only is the font bigger on Terminal 2 than in Boarding Area D, it's a more bold font. So these are things all being used together. Right? So in the Find Your Seat conceptual group, there are also groups within this, although not quite as clear as that, but they use heavy images. There's 3 images, the window image, the plane image, and the plane taking off image. And then they use contrast here for the seat. So they're using all of them at once. Great. So another way that you use tools, think about the compose button. It uses a lot of it. Does it use conceptual grouping? Yes, it's grouped within the menu. Position? Absolutely, it's top and left. White space, yeah, there's a ton of white space around it. Size, it is quite a bit bigger than anything around it. It doesn't use images. It does have contrast. It also has color, but notice that if you take this page, this also, this has some conceptual grouping. It's with all images. It's the more important messages, the unread ones, are at the top. There's a little bit of white space here to help you differentiate between the 2 types of information, the sender and the title. Size, no. Images, no. Contrast, yes, there's some bolding of the title because that's more important than the text, and no use of color. Okay. So if you look at these 2 things, these are both extremely well-designed things. They don't use very much color. This is the company logo with this apple. They don't have any choice over that, but like, where's the color used? These 2 things are red. This loading thing is yellow. This thing is blue. Maybe these little things are yellow, but it's mostly shades of gray. Okay. Same with this, you've got this yellow bar on the top. And that yellow just doesn't even really mean much. I think it's just one of Lufthansa's colors. I have no idea. Airline's too fancy for me. I think they're blue and yellow though. So that's just more branding color. It's not indicating much. Does help you find it though when you've just like dumped your boarding pass in your purse and you just need to see a pop of color to figure it out. That's nice. And so use color least, and sparingly. Novice designers, I see so many things like this. They just overuse color. Menu, blue. Kinder menu dessert, yellow. Closed for the summer. Red, Oktoberfest, red, German flag, sausage with a, whatever these German hats are called, a whole other image going on here. Let's have bricks in the background and gray behind here. It's just nuts, okay? It all blends together, nothing looks particularly important. I can't even really tell what this is about. Like, that does not jump out to me. Is it about beer? Is it about October? Okay, it's definitely about Oktoberfest, right? But is it like Bavarian Brat House is what comes? I don't understand. Okay, maybe if willkommen und guten Appetit, that probably means welcome and have a good appetite or something. Anyway, it's not my language abilities, it's their design abilities. Okay, awesome. So why don't you need color? Because everything else is doing it for you. Even here, the red, you could just have used a dark gray that gives you the contrast you need to make it look important. You can still see the compose button. You're still like, when you're like, oh, how do I compose something? You're still gonna go there. Yes, a little bit of red helps, but only use these colors last. Okay. Great. All right. So I see often that people very tempted to use color, like, oh, this group and this group and this group and this group. But if you squint at it, you don't really see the groups. This passes the squint test much better. Whenever you're tempted to use color, use size, white space, and contrast instead first. Then if you think you really need color, maybe let's talk. I'll think about it. Okay. So remember the squint test, the all important squint test. Like, can they see 3 groups with the most important information? Just pops out at you so much so that you almost can't not see it. Okay, great. So now you get to try this. I'm giving you your own bit of undifferentiated text. 100% cotton, cold wash machine, do not dry clean, wash dark separately, do not bleach, wash inside out, do not tumble dry, line dry and shade, warm iron on reverse, made in China, RFC, numbers, numbers, numbers. Okay, so I'm gonna break you into groups. I really recommend everyone do your own. Start with a Google presentation, just open one up. And first we have to understand the user and their task. You have to be able to say, who's the user? What are they trying to accomplish? When are they reading this? If you don't know the answers to this, interview someone in your group. Definitely share your slides. And then based on these user tasks, break it into conceptual groups. And you have to have a name for each concept. Like, this is before the flight, at the airport, ready to take off. And then within each group, what's the most important piece of information? I would say make it bigger and bolder. Okay. So I'm going to send out this text over Zoom. See if I can do that right now. Chat, chat, chat. Chat, chat, chat. Okay. I think everyone got that. Now, Laura, you will have, I think I said 8 minutes to do this. So it's quick. And definitely.
Per room. Lydia, how many?
I don't know, whatever. 5 is good.
5, okay.
Anything. I'm also gonna put this stuff on Slack so you have an image of it. I'm gonna stop sharing just for a sec so I can get to my desktop. Design at American Columbia. Where are we going with this? General. What happened to general? Somewhere down in here. Well, announcements. All right. I shoved this image in announcements. Oh, it's got the stupid breakout room crap in front of it. Okay, new screenshot.
I can also broadcast.
People can't see it once they're in the groups, though.
I see.
Okay. So those are the instructions.
So I'll say check announcements.
Yes. All right, go for it. See you in 8 minutes.
Has the other broadcast ended?
What do you mean? Like
It's
my screen share?
It's not showing up anymore, right? The old broadcast.
Yeah, I'm not screen sharing. Oh, from Laura Block to everyone. FYI,
Yeah.
slides.new opens a new presentation with Google Slides. Where would you type slides.new?
Into your Chrome browser.
Ah, that's
Tomorrow.
cool.
Works for docs and sheets as well.
That's so cool.
How did you learn this? Oh, is this a parent thing?
He works at Google.
I worked
No.
on doc sheets and slides.
Why don't more people know about that? That's really cool. I guess it's quite a niche. There's a few times I guess I need to do that.
No, it's a shortcut. Shortcuts are always really hard to learn.
Yeah.
I use it a lot though.
I will now.
I just had a plant delivery. Yes, another plant.
Oh, soon when we call you, it will just be like jungle around you, like leaves everywhere.
I love my 3 basil plants I bought at Whole Foods. They're like my children who I eat.
Oh. Hello. My dinner's here, so I'm going to turn off my video and my sound.
Oh, I'm doing pretty good on time. Go me.
How much time is left? I can send a broadcast message out. Lydia?
Sorry, the time left is 3:13 now. 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay.
8 minutes won't be enough, but whatever.
Yeah.
Laura, you want to give them a 1-minute warning? It's a minute 30, but you know, whatever.
Yeah. When I click close all rooms, that gives them a 1-minute warning, right?
No, I give them a 1-minute warning now, and then we'll close the rooms in a minute. It does give them another minute to get back, but
Yeah.
all right, bring them back in.
Okay, I'm closing all the rooms.
Can you see my screen again?
Yep, you're all good.
What? Do you have a number of like how many people are back in the room?
Only 16. Only 16 people are back so far.
Okay, that's
have
good. I
another-
just, while I project, I can't see. So you want to give me, I think we want to get back up to like 35 or so.
Yeah, they'll be back in 5 seconds.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Some numbers shooting up. Okay, I think almost everyone is back now.
All right, so I am now going to go over the answers. If you don't want to hear them, I'm going to shut off your computer for the next like 5 minutes. And if you found this extraordinarily hard and then some, yeah, this is really hard. I give this as an assignment in my class, and things that I hear every year is like, I don't know how to do laundry. I'm like, well, you got to talk to someone that does know how to do laundry. Interview your grandma, your dad, or you know, somebody, or they haven't done this kind of laundry, or they don't have the context. That's design. You may not have that context. Even so, there's just so many ways to do this. There's no right answer, but there are definitely some wrong answers. So let me show you some typical submissions that I get. So this is an answer that got full credit in my class. What's good about it, and here's a little squint test of it. So you squint, you're like 100% cotton, machine wash cold, do not bleach, do not tumble dry or dry clean. So what's good about it, there are 3 conceptual groups. Each group has the most important thing emphasized. Maybe there's a little too much, but whatever. And it's emphasized with 2 tools. So like here's 2 forms of contrast. Here's size and contrast. Here, this is sort of the like manufacturing information, of which this RFC thing is not particularly important. But the fact that it's made of cotton could be to someone. And then, oh, wash it cold, don't tumble dry or dry clean. So like that makes sense. If there's like very few things to know about how to wash, and this is like how to wash it, how to dry it, are concepts here. Okay, here's an answer. I'm not showing it completely. It's very blurred out. This is not so great, but it's fixable. There are good things about it. A good thing is there are 3 groups. There's a group here. This group is not really a group though. It's a little bit small. And then a huge group with everything emphasized, and then another group down here that could be the right size. So problems are, there's just too much emphasized in group 2. It's all emphasized. If everything's emphasized, then basically nothing is emphasized because it all becomes the same. Okay? So the trick to fixing this is you really have to break up group 2. If you don't get the groups right from the start, everything is just screwed up. So this one you just have to go back and figure out how we want to group them so that group 2 is smaller. So here's another fixable answer. It's a lot of good things going on here. There's 3 groups and they're nice size. They're all kind of, the same. The problem is there's no focus within each group. There's just like cold, machine, not, dark, separate, inside, out, not, line, dry, shade, warm. It's just like kind of everything. Every other thing is being shouted out with you, and they're just using bold. There's only using one of these heuristics. So here we gotta really think about the concepts and be more selective on what to prioritize. Not everything, or like every other word, but like thoughts, like one most important thought in the conceptual group. So here's one I would like to fix or improve. So this section is about machine washing. I argue that if there's one thing that you need to know about, so you're holding this piece of clothing, you're reading its label, you're about to like select what thing you want on the washing machine, and you're like, cold wash machine. That's it. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Everything else, after they read this, there's actually implied that you don't need to dry clean it. Do not bleach is useful information, but like most people don't bleach things by necessary. And there's like wash dark separately, wash inside out. You don't actually need this. So it's just, do you need it all? Yes, in some sense you need it all. But if you wanted to know more about the washing, it's down here. You would read it after you first read machine wash cold. Okay, so great. How about the concept of drying instructions? Do not tumble dry, line dry, and shade, or one. I would say if there's one thing to know about the drying, it's that you need to line dry and shade. All right, so here, you should machine wash cold, you should line dry and shade. If you just do that, you're gonna be pretty much fine. Okay, and then within the manufacturing instructions, the only thing that seems important to the user as they are washing this or buying this item is what it's made out of. Less or so, made in China. You're only really gonna need this if you have to have like a customer complaint and they wanna know like what factory is that. So you may need it, but it's not the most common use case. So this is a pretty great way of saying it. Another type of conceptual grouping, rather than washing, drying, manufacturing, I've seen is do and do nots, and then manufacturing information. Also works. There's a strong concept behind it, and there's information you could prioritize in each one of them. So in either one of these, I argue that they're different texts, but they use some of the same tricks in order to get at a visual information hierarchy that guides your attention and brings out the most important things. Okay? And the 7 tools we use for this: grouping, location, whitespace, size, images, contrast, and color, but only last and sparingly. Grouping, location, whitespace, those are the ones you really want to lean on. Okay, that is it. I will hand it back to Laura.
Amazing, thank you. I'm not turning on my video because I'm eating dinner because it's dinner time in England. Should we take another quick 2-minute break before our next workshop, which will be Figma 101 with Lucy Huo. She's joining. In fact, I'll save her intro. Go take a 2-minute break. We'll be back at 22 past to start the workshop. Hello. Okay, so it's 22 past. I'm keen to get started before we cut into any more of our time. We are now going to have a Figma 101 workshop with Lucy Ho. She's a student at UCLA and she's also a software engineering intern at PayPal. So, knows what she's doing with Figma. And today she's going to be teaching us how to use Figma. For those who don't know, we've been speaking about it, mentioning it here and there, but it's an industry standard tool for prototyping and design, whether that's low fidelity all the way up to high fidelity, including motion design, animation, all of this stuff. It's a really powerful tool and it's free with a .edu email address. So you will need to sign up with a .edu email address, whether it's your Columbia or Barnard one or whatever edu email you have. But that is how you will be able to use it for free. There's a web app, there's a desktop app, it doesn't really matter which one you use. But without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Lucy. I'll stop screen sharing as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy. First I'm going to start off with a few slides, but then right after we'll jump right into Figma. So I didn't really know what the program covered so far, so I just wanted to give a brief overview of the differences between like UI and UX. So first, UI is kind of the look and feel of the application. So this usually covers what kind of fonts and colors you want to use. It might also include like animations, like how you transition from different pages. You also have to consider like what's the focal point of each page and a lot of different things like the responsiveness, like how will your website look on phones? What about on iPads? You have to consider like a lot of different types of devices. And then I would say user experience is more about the functionality. So the user kind of expects that they'll be able to do certain things. So like for a social media website, you want to be able to block people. You also want to be able to follow or like add friends. So there's also other things such as like if a user makes a mistake, you want to be able to fix it. And does the user always know where they are in the process?
Lucy, just to interrupt you for one sec. Are we meant to be seeing slides right now?
Oh, yeah. Hold
Oh,
on.
okay.
I don't know.
Sharing your screen and then share again, just because we
Okay.
can't see.
Yeah, it does say my screen sharing is paused for some reason. Okay, yeah, so this is the slide that I was trying to talk about. Is it?
Give us 1 second.
Oh, I still don't think it's visible.
No, it's not. I think you have to be on the tab that you are sharing.
Yeah, I am. I'm just. It's not letting me like, okay. It keeps pausing my screen share for some reason. I don't really know what that means.
I'm not really sure. I've never really experienced this before. But if you, oh, hang on a minute. Now we've got it.
Okay, now it's working?
Yes, now it's working.
Okay, yeah, I have no idea what was going on.
Okay, yeah, we can see it now.
But yeah, so this is the main slide that I was going over. I can totally send this out later as well.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. We'll include it in our deck as well.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to give a concrete example of this because this is kind of more abstract. So this is a project that I worked on before. And so the UI part of this is kind of like the small touches, like the logo, how like the fonts are organized. So the main like logo is kind of like in bold, and then underneath there's like a subtitle that's more in italics and also grayed out. And an example of UX is kind of error handling. So in this case, like the user's passwords don't match. There's also a lot of other things you want to consider. So like if the username is misspelled or it doesn't exist, if the email also can't be accessed. So there's like a lot of little things that you have to consider when designing something. And then also a typical design cycle, I would say like there's definitely more steps and it's more nuanced than this. But I would say the first step is research. So you want to really get to know like what kind of product you're making and interview potential users. I think you guys have covered this. So the second step is more getting into design. So starting to sketch. I know you guys have been doing paper prototypes and also coming up with just a lot of different ideas is really good at this point, and collaborating and always like iterating on each other's ideas. So you want to start off with kind of low or medium fidelity prototypes because things are always going to be changing at this point. You don't want to invest too much time into like one idea and then it's not really like someone doesn't really like it and you have to change everything. And then third is kind of the implementing and testing phase. So you'll want to do more interviews. And there's also something called A/B testing that's often used, where you show different screens to different users and it's like completely random and you see which one has more users who like are interested. So which leads to more like signups or subscribers, something like that. So at this point, we're going to transition to Figma. And I have prepared a Figma document. So if you have a account, you can open this link. I'll send it into the chat. And once you're here, you can click on this button and then go to File, or actually, since this is mine, I don't think it's showing up, but there will be a place where you can make a copy somewhere here, I think.
If you just type copy and search, the option will come up for everyone.
No, yeah, I know there's like a make a copy option. I just don't know. I don't think it shows up if you're the owner, maybe.
Edit copy as. Yeah, it won't show up on your own file, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's make a copy, but if you can't find it, let me know. It doesn't show a copy option. Are you logged in? It's not letting you click on it. So everyone has view access right now. I don't know if they need edit access because I've definitely made copies of things that I don't own.
You can go back in. Can you give everyone edit access and just let them create their own Figma Basics page, possibly?
Yeah. I'm just worried because if everyone is like working on the same page, I think.
Yeah, I think that might get a little bit messy. So an option is if you click on, for those who are not Lucy, if you go back to your main page and then you right click, so your main Figma, your Figma homepage, it will show you your recent projects. It will show that file in most recent, and then you can click duplicate, and that will create a copy of, yeah, exactly. Lucy's showing you how.
Okay, great.
Okay. Great. Does anyone having issues duplicating that file? And it's also not mandatory that you follow along if you're if you just want to sit back and watch and then play around later. That's also an option.
Yeah, and I'll definitely be sharing this.
Yeah, we're recording everything, so it will be up on the website, and you can rewatch whatever you need to rewatch later.
Okay, so hopefully everyone's set up now.
Yeah. Okay.
So the first thing we'll be going over is text boxes. So this is pretty standard. It's pretty similar to like Google Slides or PowerPoint. You can create a text box, you can type something. On the side, there's a lot of options. So for text, I'm using this font. I think it's not a default font, so you might not be able to change these pre-existing text boxes. But I'm using something called like the Figma font helper that lets you transition all the fonts you have on your laptop to Figma. I don't really know how it works, but if you install any font on your machine, it'll show up in Figma as well. And you can resize it. So that's pretty standard. The next thing is shapes. So this is definitely like the bread and butter of what you'll be doing in Figma. You have your standard rectangle. If you want to make like a square, you can click and drag and then hold shift, and this will lock it so that it always stays like the same aspect ratio. This also works with like the rectangle. So if I click on the corner and I hold shift and then move it up and down, like it won't change the aspect ratio, which is really great. And this also goes for the ellipse tool. So you can usually just create ovals or whatever, but if you hold shift, you'll make like a perfect circle. Next is masking. So if you're familiar with other kind of drawing software, this is going to be pretty standard, but say I have two shapes, and then I'm just going to change the color of this just to make it more obvious. If I set the rectangle in the sidebar here, so if I right click on it and then click use as mask, it'll create like this mask group, and then I can drag the ellipse into this group. So it's not showing up anymore since it's not in the like rectangle area, but as you can see, like when I move it around, it kind of follows the rectangle shape. So yeah, that's the rectangle, and then behind it is kind of the circle. I think a more standard use case of this is, so like you want to put an image in a circle. So for like a profile image or something like that. You can also do this very easily in Figma if you go to File and then Place Image. The shortcut's also like Control-Shift-K, and then it'll ask you to select the file. So I'm just going to select a random image, and then you can click on any of these shapes and it'll put it in the shape. So yeah, that works really well. And you can also move it around if you're not happy. So these are just kind of more detailed options for an image. So you can crop it, you can make it so that the entire thing fits within the shape. You can fill it, and then tile is kind of like for like repeating backgrounds or something like that. So yeah, we've centered the image and put it in our workspace. The next thing is frames. So frames are also really important in Figma. you can create a frame that's any shape. It's just like the rectangle tool basically. And this frame is kind of like a bigger section. Typically though, I won't use like a frame of my own size. So you'll see on the sidebar and like the design, under design, it'll show you a lot of different like phone types, tablet types, desktop types. So I'll typically use like one of these phone types. It will give you like the size of like an iPhone 8 Plus here. So you won't have to adjust it when you're actually like implementing it, I guess. And you don't have to guess like, oh, how much of this is actually going to show on an iPhone screen. And the importance of frames is kind of that everything kind of shows up in one of these frames. So these are kind of standalone shapes, but if I drag it onto the frame, it'll start showing up here. And later when we get to prototyping, frames will be really important. Something I also wanted to touch on was the alignment tools in Figma. So here I just have like 3 randomly sized boxes. If you click and drag, you can select all of them, and then there's a lot of options on the side, which are more, so you can distribute vertical spacing, horizontal spacing. So if I click this, it'll like make it so that the distance between each square is really like equal. And then if you move this and then only select these 2 and click align right edge, it'll align the right edges. This is pretty easy to do in Figma anyways, because it gives you all of these guidelines. So the red lines here, it lets you like center things and shapes really easily. And also like just see the edges. It can be a little wonky sometimes, but for the most part, it works really well. So next I'm going to move on to my next page. So in Figma, there's different pages that you can create, and this really helps with organizing everything. Because I'll usually have one page for like the landing page, and then another page for like user sign-in. So here I've collected a bunch of icons. So these are all from the material icons set, which I have here. So it's like this huge set of icons that's free to use in any of your projects. So I put a link here if you want to go look at all of them. It also really helps with searching for icons. My internet's being kind of slow, so it's going to take a while to load, but if you go to this link, there's going to be like all the icons displayed and different like styles, and you can also just search like, oh, I want a heart icon, and then it'll show you what section it's under. This Figma kind of page in general is available online if you search like Figma icons or like Figma free icons. It's like the first result. So in this example, I wanted to recreate Instagram just so that you guys can get familiar with all of the tools in Figma. So first, I'll start off with a frame. I think the iPhone 8 Plus is a pretty good size. And I will just scale this down. So the first thing I wanted to start with is kind of this header bar. So this is my phone status bar, so we'll ignore that. But in Instagram, the first thing you kind of see is this header bar. And we'll start by recreating that by creating a rectangle. And you don't have to get the exact size correct because I just want to align it at the top right for now. You can just get like a decent looking size. And then I'm pretty sure it's white or like slightly gray. So we'll just change the color here with the fill tool. And you'll also notice that there's like a slight shadow here to differentiate the header from like the rest of the app. So we can also do that in Figma by adding an effect. So this is called like a drop shadow. It's a little dark, but we can also adjust that. So if you click like the effect settings icon, you can change the blur and also like the opacity. Since it's a little dark, I'll change to like 15 or maybe even 10%. And you can also change the position of the shadow. So right now it's Y4, which means it's kind of like 4 pixels down of the rectangle. If you change it to like 10 or something, like you can see it's much larger. But we'll leave it at like 4 for now. So next we want to get like this kind of Instagram font area. So we'll just create like a text box. Instagram. You can change fonts here, and also there's like a bunch of different styles. So you have your like regular, medium, bold, italics. And this will also depend on like what options the font has. Font sizing. This is what determines like space between lines, and also you can determine like space between letters. So let me drag this over. So right now you can see that when I put this with the rectangle, it's kind of covering it. So this is because the rectangle is, first of all, not in the frame, so we should fix that. And also Instagram is like below the rectangle. So this really shows you kind of the layers of what you're doing. So if I drag this over, it now shows up over the rectangle. And you can also right click on it to bring something forward or send something backwards. And also with text, generally, I will center things just because that makes more sense to me, I guess. And then you can tell with the red guidelines that it's really easy to center something, even though I don't know like the exact dimensions. Then we want these two kind of icons. So we have like the camera icon and also the messages icon. I couldn't find an exact replica, but these are pretty close. So I'm just going to right click or click on this, and then I use a lot of shortcuts. So Control C is the copy shortcut, so it's like text, and then Control V. It'll paste it right over like the same thing, so you kind of have to drag it, but like you can tell there's two of them now. So and these are kind of big, but again we'll use like the same scaling trick. So hold Shift, hold the corner, and then scale it to whatever size you want. So I kind of want these to be the same size. So you can also do the shift kind of thing manually by clicking this chain link. So that will also constrain the proportions. Wait, hold on. But yeah, if I change this to 37, it'll change like both of the ratios. And here you can also see that like the 81 is the number of pixels between text box and this icon and also this icon. So it's easy to like make sure everything's kind of pixel perfect, I guess. Next we'll just be kind of going over the general like post layout. So I won't actually be using images for these, but I think it's pretty standard to just use like gray boxes or gray circles. And then in a high fidelity, you might want to replace those with actual like images to make it look more authentic. So I'm just going to resize a few things. And you can also tell this is bold, so I'm just going to bold this. And this is a case where you might want to not use centered text because this is definitely like right aligned and you don't want like the text to be in a weird place, I guess. I'm just going to create a big square for the image placeholder. Going to put it next to the edge and then scale it up. So that looks pretty decent. And we're just going to copy these icons over. So I have the heart icon, the chat icon. So to select multiple things, you can click on something and then hold shift and click on something else. This box kind of makes you think that everything is selected, but it's just kind of showing you like which area your selected things are in. So like these aren't selected. And if I copy it and then drag, it's just these three icons. Oh yeah, you'll also see me using like shortcuts to zoom in and zoom out. So this is just Control plus and Control minus, at least for me. And I'm also going to scale these down. I think 34 or 37 was a good size. Yeah, so you kind of have that set up like Instagram. We're not going to worry too much about all the text parts. I will just put one text box here. Make sure everything aligns. And something I wanted to point out is that, so although we kind of have this layout right now for the iPhone 8 Plus, we can extend it if we want to create like a scrolling interface like Instagram. So if I just extend this and then select everything that I just created, copy, paste it, and then drag it down, you kind of get that like Instagram feed look. And I mean, yeah, this looks kind of weird right now because it's just like a long skinny frame. But if later when we get to prototyping, this will actually look decent. And let's also just create like a header or a footer bar, just so that it's more obvious where the footer is supposed to be. Actually, yeah, I should have done that first. But yeah, I'm just undoing everything right now to get back to our original aspect ratio. So you can also just copy paste or create another iPhone 8 Plus frame, I think. Again, resizing this footer bar. We'll keep it dark so that it's visible. And then again, we're going to extend this. Copy everything. Something that might make this easier is to group everything. So if I right click on everything I've just selected and then click group, so everything in this box is kind of a group. I can drag it around. I can copy and paste it without having to make sure like I actually selected everything. Again, this is going to look a little weird for now, but I'll show you what I'm trying to do later. If you want to click on something specific in a group, you can just double click. So I've just selected this rectangle. Yeah. And something that's really unique about Figma is that you can kind of present what you've made. So if you go to prototype, you can kind of see what device your demo is kind of going to be on. So since I am using the iPhone 8 Plus frame, it defaults to iPhone 8 Plus. You can select the starting frame. So it's missing for me right now since I haven't done any prototyping. But I have just run the prototype by clicking the present button. And if I change tabs, you can see that like it actually looks like it's on a phone. So this is not what we wanted because we want the header and the footer to stay in place, but Figma also has options for this. So if I go into my frame and let's just group this stuff together first. So I'm going to group this and rename it header. And these are our image groups, and this is our footer. And I'm going to drag the header over the image groups because we don't want the image to go over the header at any point. And since I'm pretty sure we're not going to make any changes to the header, we can block it so that we can't change it. So as you can see, like we can't even move it now since it's locked. And I'm going to lock the footer as well. And also to make it stay in place when we scroll, there's this option that says fixed position when scrolling here. And if I do this and rerun the prototype, so when you're dragging and scrolling, you can see that the header and footer stay in place even though we're scrolling. And this is a pretty good approximation of Instagram. Yeah, so that kind of goes under making the feed, like the whole scrolling aspect. Next, I want to go more into, I'm going to copy and paste it into the next page. Actually, yeah, I don't know how we're doing on time, so I'm just going to shorten this for now. But if you go to Instagram, you'll notice that when you click on your messages button, the screen kind of slides over to your messages really nicely. So I wanted to recreate that in Figma. So prototyping, we're going to start with prototyping now. Every object in Figma has kind of this circle to it when you switch to the prototype mode from the design mode. So we've just been working in the design mode now, but prototyping lets you kind of drag this circle thing to a different frame. And then when you click on it, it's going to go to the next frame. So this is just a picture of my messages screen because I didn't want to create it again. But if we click on the play button now, we'll be starting from this page instead of the previous page. And if I click on this, it kind of transitions abruptly. So there's no like indicator of what we clicked on kind of. But we can definitely change that. Actually, I'm going to unlock the header now because I need to access this messaging button. So I'm going to drag this over to the messages screen. So that means when we click on this, it's going to go to messages. And I also want there to be an actual animation. So I'm going to change it to slide in. And this gives you like a demo of what's going to happen. So this is screen A and this is screen B. So B is going to slide in from the right and you can change the direction. But this is what actually happens, I think. And I also want to make a way for us to get back to our original screen. So I will click on this arrow. I actually had to put an arrow here, so it's not actually from the image. So if I drag this arrow back to the screen, there's something similar. So on tap, you can also do like mouse enter on drag. there's a lot of different options. I'm going to do the same kind of slide in effect, except from the opposite side. So now if I play it, I click the back button and our old screen kind of slides in, and I click the messages button and this kind of slides over and it looks really natural. It's a really good effect. And this is kind of similar to what I wanted to do here. So with the whole profile. So when you copy a frame, all of the prototyping stuff will kind of stick, which is fine for us right now. I'm just going to create like a new frame real quick. Just to simulate like the user profile stuff. But yeah, we can create another link from this circle if we double click on it to this frame. And let's just create a back button. I'm going to copy this arrow, drag it over to this screen. So this looks pretty bad, but just as an example. So we can remove this connection and put it here, although it doesn't really matter since these two are the same. And we can set our starting frame to iPhone 8 plus 4. I mean, generally I would rename these so that it's kind of clear which screen you're on, but yeah, so now if we click on the icon, we kind of get to this username profile page. If we click the back button, it goes back. So that's how you'll simulate a lot of different like functionalities in Figma. So those are kind of the Figma basics, but there's also some more advanced topics that I wanted to cover if you guys are interested. So something that's really important in Figma and that will make your work a lot easier is the component system. So I'm going to call this the master component, and I'm going to add a shape just so that it's not just text. I'm going to group these two. But instead of clicking group selection, I'm going to click create component. And you'll see this is kind of a group, but it's actually called a component, and there's this diamond icon kind of. If we copy and paste this, and let me just change this to child component. You'll see that this also has a diamond icon, but it's not filled in. So this is the indicator that tells you whether something is the master icon or the child component. So if we change this child component, the master component isn't affected. But if we change the master component, okay, wait. This doesn't affect the child because we already changed the color. But if we go back and we change the color of the master component, it'll also change the child component. This doesn't really apply to text, which makes sense because you'll usually have some kind of button option, like standard button option, and I'm going to round the corners by just typing in a value here and adding some text. So let's say we want all buttons on our website to look like this for some reason. So on a web page, we'll have a lot of different buttons. So if we were to change the style, say someone was like, oh, I think we should choose a different color, then instead of manually changing all of the colors of all the buttons. We can just change the master component. And that's kind of how design systems will work later. So you can see with these two buttons, I'm changing the color here, and it also changes the other button. And you'll also be using this technique for things like headers, logos, just so that you don't have to remake everything. And finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about vectors. So this definitely isn't necessary, but it's kind of how Figma operates. So a vector is basically something that when you zoom in, it's never going to lose like its resolution. So when you zoom into most shapes or images, you can tell that after a certain point, it starts getting pixelated. But vectors are kind of these infinitely scalable things, I guess. It's kind of hard to explain, but they're kind of like mathematically defined paths. And you can create your own vectors in Figma by using the pen tool here. So say I wanted to create like a crown icon. It's really easy to just like link these, and then I have my own shape here. I can change the stroke width. So if I want it really thick, I can change the stroke color and also add a fill color here. And you can also edit shapes. You might have noticed that if you click on a shape too many times, it kind of goes into this weird, like different mode. And this is like the vector mode. So like with this circle, I can just create like a random path here. So I'm clicking and dragging to make it a curve. And then I'm just going to loop it back around. And this tool lets you kind of select something. So I made this transparent, and I can also like remove this section. If you actually want to create like vector graphics like this, I would suggest you use Adobe Illustrator instead. It has way better tools, I think. Figma is pretty great too, but there's just like way more options in Illustrator that let you like change colors, duplicate things, add and remove sections, while Figma is a little bit limited in that regard. But yeah, that is a basic vector, and you can definitely use this to create your own icons if you want to. So that's kind of everything I wanted to cover. If you have any questions, I will still be here for a while. Let me know if you want me to go over anything again. But yeah, thanks for listening, and I hope you have a good grasp on Figma right now. It's really flexible, and I've used it to create like basically all my design projects. It's really great that you can share everything and see everything in real time. But yeah, you can definitely create a lot of great things and like professional looking prototypes with this. Oh yeah, I definitely think Illustrator is more powerful, but it's really hard to learn because there's so many tools. Figma definitely simplifies that by just having the like pen tool and also different shapes you can alter, but yeah. For Xcode, so yeah, you might have noticed that there's like a code section here. I personally don't really recommend using it just because in Figma, you'll notice that you have these like predefined widths and heights, and this doesn't really work in like an actual web app. So because you want these things to kind of be more scalable, like you'll see that I can kind of change the resolution of this, and in that case you kind of want your website to also change as well. So I wouldn't recommend using these like fixed heights or anything like that. These are kind of like more absolute positions.
I will
I think
hop on very quickly and say there are ways, very advanced ways on Figma to make it so that when you change your frame size, that everything within it scales as if it was on the web.
oh
We're going to
okay
get into that deep detail under the design panel with resizing. then
Mhm.
yes, the CSS will be correct.
Oh, really? Okay.
Otherwise, it will be absolute and kind of fixed values.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So as parents said, there's definitely ways to make it scalable, but again, like I have done kind of front-end development work, and in that regard, there's just like so many more things you want to take into account. Because in Figma, you're kind of just pasting images, but in web development, you're using kind of CSS grid techniques or like Flexbox to organize your things. So Figma is useful if you want kind of the hex codes for colors and stuff like that, but otherwise I wouldn't use the code section too much.
But if you want to know how to code, go to the ADI workshop on Sunday. It's 3 to 4 p.m. EST. They're teaching an intro to HTML and CSS, which for anyone who's like thinks they're like a code phobe and it's beyond their talents, HTML and CSS it's basically not coding. It's pretty accessible. It's not mandatory that you go, it's totally optional. So if you just want to get that extra skill and like have a basic grasp of building websites, that's a great workshop to go to. But thank you, Lucy, for leading that really comprehensive workshop. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask them now. Karen and I have also used Figma and are on hand throughout the week, and we'll be running design jams on Monday. So if you want to come to that to figure out anything on Figma, we can hop on your file with you. Yeah. Like Lucy said earlier, Adobe Illustrator is really powerful, but it's not that beginner friendly. It's also very expensive, and it's not as collaboration friendly as Figma is. So with Figma, it's a lot like Google Docs. You have live collaboration. We can all hop onto the same file at the same time and all design together, which is just amazing.
Also, no one uses Illustrator in industry for UX design. It's only used for like visual graphic design.
Yeah.
We all use Figma pretty much, or a few of us still use Sketch.
Yeah. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, please post in the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much for staying right until the end. Thank you, Lucy, for leading such an amazing workshop. And we will see you on Monday. Okay, great. I'm going to give it about 1 more minute for anyone who does have questions to type them out, or just type a Q to show that you're typing a question. And if not, then otherwise I will end the call. Okay, great. I'm going to end the call. Thank you so much, Lucy, for leading that amazing workshop.
Lucy.
No problem. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.